Second reading this morning is also from Isaiah, this time chapter 65, verses 17 through 25. For I am about to create new heavens and a new earth. The things of the past will not be remembered or come to mind. Be glad and rejoice forever and ever in what I create, because I now create Jerusalem to be a joy and its people to be a delight. I will rejoice in Jerusalem and delight in my people. No more shall the sound of weeping be heard in it, or the cry of distress. No longer will there be in it an infant who lives but a few days, or old people who do not live out their days. They die as mere youths who reach but 100 years. And those who fall short of 100 will be thought accursed. At last they will live in the houses they build and eat the fruit of the vineyard they plant. They will not build for another to inhabit. They will not plant for another to eat. For the days of my people will be like the days of a tree, and my chosen ones will enjoy the fruit of their labors. They will not labor in vain or bear children doomed to die. For they and their descendants are a people blessed by God. Even before they call upon me, I will answer. And while they speak, I will hear. The wolf and the lamb will feed side by side. The lion will eat straw like an ox. Serpents will be content to crawl on the ground. They will not injure or destroy. In all my holy mountain, says the eternal God.
When the ancient Jewish people first heard the words about new heavens and a new earth, they didn't think of cosmic destruction. They heard restoration. The Hebrew understanding wasn't about God scrapping this world and building another one somewhere else. It was about transformation happening right here in the dirt, in the work, in the communities they were already a part of. Biblical scholar N.T. Wright reminds us, quote, most modern Western Christians think that the point of Christianity is for my soul to go to heaven when I die. But that's not what the Bible teaches, end quote. What matter, Wright goes on to say, is, quote, God doing new creation and the church being the people through whose life and prayer and work new creation is already happening around us, end quote. Already happening. Not later. Right now. That shift from waiting for heaven to building it changes everything. Last week, churches in Pennsylvania got news that SNAP benefits were caught in the bureaucratic confusion. Families depending on assistance to buy groceries didn't know when help would come. Some congregations waited to see what the government would do. Others said, we can't wait. They opened their food pantries wide, stretched their budgets even thinner, made sure children in their communities had food, while politicians sorted out the paperwork. Beloved, that's new creation, not a metaphor, as actual food on actual tables for actual families. The question for us isn't whether God is doing something new. The question is whether we're paying attention and whether we are willing to participate. Now, I must admit, there is an uncomfortable truth about stewardship we'd rather not examine too closely. Our own comfort connects to other people's labor in ways that we rarely think about. Someone grows the food we eat. Someone makes the clothes we wear. Someone cleans the spaces we occupy. Someone works, makes our lives function smoothly. How often do we know those names? Or ask about their wages? Wonder whether they have health care, safe housing, or any margin between themselves and chaos? The word economics comes from the Greek oikos, household. Oikos originally meant the management of the household, arranging what's necessary for well-being, not just your individual house, but the whole households of everyone we share this small planet home. Somewhere along the way, we shrank household to only mean our four walls. We started thinking about prosperity in individual terms. My comfort, my security, my family's future, while forgetting that we're part of a much larger household. That includes persons sleeping under the bridge, the family choosing between rent and groceries, the worker whose labor makes our comfort possible. Now, the book of Isaiah in our Bibles isn't actually one book by one author. Scholars recognize three distinct traditions, often called First Isaiah, Second Isaiah, Third Isaiah, and they were written by different people across different centuries, actually. The earlier chapters, including Isaiah 12, were written before the exile to Babylon during a time of relative stability. But the passage we heard about new heavens and new earth comes from much, much later, written after the Jewish people returned from exile. They're home. The trauma is over. And now they face the harder question, what do we build now? What kind of community do we want to create? And the writers of Isaiah keep circling back to the same vision. Build a world where everyone gets a place to live, eat what they plant, enjoy the fruit of their labor. A world where no one is exploited for someone else's gain. What would it mean for Mountain Rise to practice household economics in the older, fuller sense? To manage common life in ways that arrange for everyone's well-being, not just your own. It might mean a church budget that becomes a theological document reflecting in dollars what you say you believe about who matters and what's sacred. It might mean knowing the people we serve in this community by name, asking about their lives, ensuring they're paid fairly and treated with dignity, rather than politely thanking them. It means measuring abundance differently, not by how much you accumulate, by how much you share. Asking not, do I have enough, but does my neighbor have what they need? N.T. Wright, again, talks about how early Christian communities created what he calls small working models of transformed reality, places so different from the surrounding culture that people would ask, how come you seem to be sort of different? And the answer was, we're trying to live as if the world we long for is already real. That's what stewardship means. Not just managing our money wisely, but aligning how we live with the world we claim we're holding and building. In Octavia Butler's novel, Parable of the Sower, The protagonist, Lauren, watches systems collapse around her. Everything familiar is falling apart. The future looks impossible. But what does Lauren do? She keeps planting seeds. Even when the ground seems barren, plant. Even when transformation feels distant, tend what's growing. Even when work seems futile, build. Because the alternative, accepting things the way they are, shrugging at suffering, waiting for someone else to create change, that's not faith. It's resignation. Friends, there is something fierce about choosing hope. When systems designed to crush it, something defiant about planting seeds when the harvest looks impossible. Something revolutionary about building community when culture preaches self-sufficiency. That fierceness matters. Because building the world the prophet describes, where everyone has shelter, where labor brings dignity, where the vulnerable find safety, where justice isn't abstract but actual, requires more than good intentions. It requires sustained commitment, daily choices, unglamorous work. It requires trusting without fear. God, you are my strength and refuge. I trust you and I'm not afraid. Not afraid of what this will cost. Not afraid what we might have to give up. Not afraid there won't be enough if we share what we have. Drawing water with joy from wells of hope, that's the image. Not grimly resigned, not anxiously calculating, but joyfully trusting, participating in what God is already doing. It requires believing that another way is possible than living as if it was already real. The original Hebrew in Isaiah 65 uses a verb tense that's hard to translate into English. It's something between I'm creating and I'm about to create. It suggests that action is already underway, but yet not complete. Movement, momentum, work in progress. God isn't waiting. The new creation has already started. Small pockets of transformed reality are sprouting everywhere. Food appearing on tables, families finding shelter, communities choosing solidarity over self-protection, people recognizing profound interdependence. Our work is not to create from nothing. Our work is to recognize it where it's already growing and join in tending it. To align our lives, our time, our money, our energy, our voices with what's trying to be born. Again, N.T. Wright says the church should be a community so attractive, so alive, so different that people will notice and ask questions. What if Mountain Rise became that type of witness? Not perfect, not finished, but real enough that neighbors could point and say, look, it's actually possible to live differently, to share rather than hoard, to welcome rather than exclude, to build rather than wait. What you're creating isn't distant. It's not deferred until after death. It's not confined to some other worldly realm. Beloved, what you're creating right here in how you spend your money, in whose dignity you defend, in which neighbors you remember, and what you're willing to sacrifice so others can thrive. The work has already begun. God is already weaving restoration into our very beings. All that's left is for you to pick up to pick up your thread and join in. Not someday, not eventually, not when it's convenient. Now.